Welcome to the Refueling Station Live. I am your host, Dr. Thank you so much for joining me. If you are tuning in for the first time, welcome. Refueling Station Live is a place where leaders of color can gain inspiration to live, do, and be well. I am an executive leadership coach and owner of gracefullyproductive.com, a leadership coaching consulting agency. And you can hear more about what I do and how you can work with me at the end. But today's topic is about leveraging your strengths. And so sometimes I know this topic can be a little common, but sometimes it is a topic that we forget to actually apply in real time. And so I want to talk about why it's necessary, how we can actually be more self-aware, use our talents, and how I'm going to explain how that's connected to burnout, which some of you may be experiencing, mainly because we're working outside of our natural strengths and ability. And that takes a lot more energy to do. And we're taking away from the energy when we can get better at what we're really naturally good at. So thank you so much for joining. If you leave in the comments, if you have any questions, and at the end of this and in the show notes, I can put out, you can find how and where to contact me. If you have any questions or you would like to explore this topic a little bit more for you or your team. So let's hop into it. So the title of this episode or the theme of this episode is strengths-driven leadership. Leadership can be, there's all types. There's transformative, authentic, blah, blah, blah. But when I'm talking in terms of strengths-driven leadership, it's about showing up and leveraging your unique abilities. But in order to do this, you must be self-aware. So why is this so? This seems a common knowledge, right? This is commonplace, common sense. You say what you're good at and you do it, right? That's not easy, especially in the type of environments and workplaces that we have today. Let's start at why that is. Even in our culture, outside of work, anywhere, we tend to be fixated on our flaws. I'm not sure where that's coming from. Some people who've done the research, who are psychologists and brain, who've done more work on this than I have, can maybe explain. But we tend to fixate on our flaws. And that carries over into our relationships, to our home, into how we see ourselves as a person, to how we see ourselves as an employer, and whatever role we're in, right? So when we think about that and how much time we may be wasting on focusing on flaws, when I looked at the research, I do know for that point, when I have looked at the research in terms of using your strengths, when we fixate on our flaws, that research shows that there's a minimal gain in success or outcomes, right? So you can only go so far by trying to improve it. And it's hard to escape, especially if you're in a job interview. The first thing, if it's after, just say, what's your name? Tell us a little bit about yourself. The third question, fourth question tends to be, guess what? Tell me about your strengths and your weaknesses. What happens if we're in a place when we talk about our strengths first and spend a very little time, or even in our professional evaluation, we have to talk about our strengths and our weaknesses and how we're going to shore them up? What if in that moment your employer, or you sitting with your employee or staff or team member, and you say, okay, what's your strengths? What are your talents that I haven't been seeing? How would you like to show up? Where would you like to show up? That conversation switches. So my argument for focusing on strengths-driven leadership is if we can focus on strengths and get a high level of success with focusing on strengths than we do focusing on weaknesses, why don't we just do that? But so many times in our workplace and in our own leadership development or personal development, we focus on how can I show up my weakness, so I'm not embarrassed or I can be better. But the message of this episode today is, yes, you have flaws. Everybody can be great at everything, But if you focus on what you're strong at and leverage that by collaborating with others, appreciating strength of others, we can get a whole lot done. So let me show you or talk a little bit more about strengths-based leadership. So formal definition is really just about leveraging your unique abilities and your individual strengths to maximize team performance, but also to maximize your own performance. And I've always been drawn to this. I was very fortunate enough that my first professional boss, she operated in the sense, no, we didn't have, at the time, I don't think we didn't have any assessments to gauge this or have the words like I'm going to present to you in terms of the Gallup Strengths Assessment. But she was great at, probably because she had an education background, she was great at identifying and starting conversations about what we like to do and what we want to do and identifying strengths that maybe we didn't even know ourselves. So she always had a term, I want you to do the bulk of the work that gives you joy, but of course, work with me here. You might have to do a little bit of work that you don't want to. Presented that way, you got me. And so she always helped all of the team really focus on what we're great at and figured out a way to infuse that in every job. It was a conversation that came up even more than outside evaluations, but it really did help. One, she showed that she saw us as a human being, but it showed that she was invested in our professional personal growth. She understood that maybe she couldn't pay us everything, but at least the work can be enjoyable, and that we could work in our strengths was like it's less of a headache, more enjoyable, less effort, but knowing that sometimes we do have to do some of the work that we really don't want to do. But even in that, she knew how to shuffle things around. So she was a great mentor and role model in that aspect. So strengths-based leadership is important, but for your team, but also for you. For me, this came into play when I knew that I had a really big, I was moving up into administrative world, and I knew I wanted to be, I wanted to be myself. So I had to do some deep self-evaluation, self-awareness work of how do I want to show up as a leader. And I was not comfortable with people telling me who I needed to be. I knew that people might say, oh, you're too nice and you're too this and you're too that. I didn't have the words for it at the time, but I knew that I was strong at really coaching and molding and understanding people and being very casual and not being too serious, but really growing relationships naturally, even if I didn't care for people, right? I knew how to connect. I knew how to see them from their side. So I knew that was going to be my strength. I knew that taking from my teaching, learning, student development side, I knew how to look at challenges, how to see when people are scared or they need a little bit of support to go to the next level and grow. Those were some of the strengths that I knew that I wanted to show. And so taken from that, I was very confident of leading it, especially once I was like, okay, let me test it out. Let me go in here and say, hey, this is me. This is how I want to run my shop. This is how I want to treat my people. This is how I want to structure my environment that I had the autonomy to structure or restructure. And then when I started to see the heaviness break from the staff, or I started to see more cooperation and I started to see their response to someone new coming in and my ideas and things like that, I knew, okay, we're onto something. But when I did that, it made the work a whole lot easier. I didn't have to fight. I didn't have to hold back. I did have to like push some other people off. Even when people say, oh, you're too nice to your staff. Or other people say, people want to come work for you, Dr. Wheeler. Oh, okay, that's fine. Some of them I did want to work for me. Some of them I didn't. But I knew that that was a strength and it made the work enjoyable as a leader. And it took the weight off my shoulders, and it did not, other things led to my burnout, but that part didn't. That was the most enjoyable part of my job, was being able to understand my strengths. So part of understanding your strengths, you got to be self-aware and you have to put the ego aside. One of my previous or last month's recording of episodes of Refueling Station is all about ego. At some point, you do have to be aware and true to yourself and says, I'm not great at this. No matter how many books, tutoring, development, I don't even want to read it. I don't like it. It feels icky. I don't want to do it. I'm not great at it. It's not the point where you say, this is just the way I am. Not that kind of stubborn self-awareness, but actually owning up to say, I'm great at these things, but these things I'm not. Have to be truly self-aware. So how do we get there? Definitely self-observation, asking others. Part of one of my great professional development tools is a 360 evaluation. You might see that or hear that when people who are in leadership roles, but you can certainly do it as a professional and get outside opinions from your trusted friends, family, coworkers, colleagues, employees, and say, hey, when you think about me, what is my strength? People often give you the most clarity, and you take it and you match it to your own intuition. So that self-awareness is key in determining what's a strength and what's a weakness. I'm going to give you another term for that as I get to my theory of how I see strengths now and what changed that. And in building a strengths-based culture as a leader, whether you're an entrepreneur, for me, you have to start thinking of yourself as a company and working with yourself. You're the first person in the culture. So even if you don't have anybody working with you, now how you treat yourself is going to be a mirror to what your culture is going to look like when you do have people to work and that you actually have to lead. So building a strengths-based culture means that everybody appreciates individual strengths and they can admire and appreciate their own. So when you're in this culture, you see people not as competition, but as somebody who can strengthen me and I can strengthen them. And it is a reciprocal partnership. I love working on these teams and people feel valued and honored that I know people can come to me for this and they trust me with this and I enjoy the work. And people love to be called on and valued. Like that puts the trust and respect and builds a positive culture when we're not competing, but we are complementing each other and everybody can work in their natural zone, not get burned out or tired because we are putting too much effort and emotional energy into something that we're not great at. So that's where you want to be in any size company or organization. So again, when we fixate on our weaknesses, we limit ourselves and we put up a block on, because there may be strengths, but if we put more effort into strengthening or making those better or showing up more or applying those strengths every day, that takes practice. But if we do that, one, we're going to do things faster and more efficient. We are going to be more excited and motivated about the work that we do. We're going to have more confidence about ourselves and our abilities, and we're going to be more articulate about what you can, and you're going to know your limits, but you're also going to identify that in others, and those partnership and collaborations come together so much better because everybody's clear on what they bring to the table. So I gave you a little bit of background of like generally how someone can use strength-driven leadership. But what changed for me is me actually becoming a Gallup-Certified Strengths Coach and taking the strengths assessment. I love this assessment way more. And I'm an assessment girl. I like to just learn things and figure out things about myself. So, of course, I've taken the MBTI, the Enneagram, personality, the big five personality. I'll name them. I've probably taken them. And I use them. But for strengths, this gave a little bit different approach. So, for example, there's 34 strengths in the Gallup's assessment, but everybody has a very different how those 34 rank. Nobody has the same rank 34. So nobody else in the world has the same order of talents as anybody else. So I love that fact, but I also love it because it's they see strengths as a combination of talent. So if a communicator is a strength, that means they know how to listen this way. They know how to share their vision. They know how to put it in paper and verbally and make it clear. Like that's a strength of communication. It's multiple components. But for me, what I liked is it explained not necessarily my personality. MBTI was preferences. Yes, I'm an introvert, so I am going to prefer a smaller group, one-on-one conversation. I'm going to prefer solitude over other things, but sometimes we don't always have the ability to choose. So the Gallup strengths for me showed me what were my actual talents that show up all the time, whether I preferred it or not. So, for example, I am a relator. This helped me, and this understanding at the right time showed me what was at a time where I was not confident about my fundraising abilities, and my perspective towards fundraising development was like, I have to get out, network at parties and gatherings and galas and lunches, and I gotta just meet with people all the time, which the thought of it drained me before I could even do it, right? And so I just thought I had to be a people person and just be on and mixy and go to this happy hour and this meet and greet and this and this and this, that I felt defeated because I'm like, I really don't want another way. And so in understanding this and working with my own Gallup strength coach as I was going through the process, I shared that piece and looked at all my strengths. And so the relator piece is about how you is the relationship building component, but I was a relator. I can build relationship. Everybody can do anything, but using our strengths looks a little bit different. So a person with a woo, which is very opposite of me, they can make connections quickly. They can walk in a room and they can find common interests and carry a conversation quickly. I'm a little bit awkward at that, right? That's where I'm not good. It was stated as a weakness. But the relator part in me showed that I'm capable of building relationships, but how I do it and angle it towards fundraising looks different than maybe another executive director doing it that's closer to their strength and their personality. So my personality could be introvert. I'm not closed off and I don't want to be with people. I do enjoy building relationships, but I build deep. So when you build deep, it makes it about quality, not quantity. So I could do it, and I realized, oh, this is how I bring people to the table. This is my strength. So I'm going to form a personal connection and talk and remember little things and find ways to connect and keep connecting till that relationship is built. And I don't like that's my strength. So I have close relationships even to this day with funders because I took the time to build that personal connection. And then we talked about business, and that's how it worked for me. So that's like firsthand the transformative power of leadership and strengths driven. So I knew I had a work to do. I couldn't escape fundraising, but in order to make it enjoyable and to build my confidence in it, I knew what I had to do, but I also knew that I had to partner with someone, which is why I got a fundraising consultant who is the woo person, who knows plenty of people, was not afraid to like, oh, let's look them up. Let's email them and ask for a meeting. That frightened me so much. She did that part. She brought them to me. She said, Erin, she said it on one meeting. She was like, you got this. I don't need you. You don't need me for the presentation part. You need me for the connecting, the mixers, the meet and greets to form the connections, but you build a relationship. Tell us you're a great storyteller. You can tell the story of the students. That's your superpower. So when you understand your strengths, I'm also a restorative person, a little problem solving. And so I angle that toward my coaching. I love helping people get clarity around things that they are stuck on. So those are just two of my strengths, but finding that out really gave me one, a way to articulate who I am and what I bring to the table, which is so hard when it comes to interviewing or just telling people who you are. And even if you are an entrepreneur, this is important for your brand and how your brand or your services or how you deliver your services differ from other people. So it helped me in branding and showing up as myself as a person, but an entrepreneur. And now I see myself totally different in what parts I play on teams. And knowing that I don't have to do it all, I just need to be able to understand what I can do well and then see that in other people and say, okay, I hate details. You're detail oriented. Let's work together. I'll create the big picture. You fill it in with the details. Currently, my best friend is a very detailed list type person. And so she's helping me on the project. I said, I need you. If I think about the details right now, I'm not going to do this at all. So I need you to help me figure this out. It's so easy for her. I can say, hey, this is what I want, A, B, and C, and D. And she can go and fill in the rest. And it's easy for her to do that. It's easy for me to do this. And it's a match made in heaven and we get things done. So what happens when leaders don't show up in their strengths? When you're trying to be multiple different people, maybe your role is not aligned to your strengths. The bulk of your role is outside of your natural strengths, or expectations for how you do it is not aligned with how they want to see it done, which is another problem in itself, another episode. But what happens? You miss out on opportunities for excellence and fulfillment because you're working outside of your natural zone. You burn out quickly because you are tired of being someone you're not, are doing things that are not natural to you. Your self-confidence is decreased and you just tend to blend in. Because the jack of all trades, master of none, that applies here. You're just a regular leader. But if you can say, okay, I need a leader who can bam, 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 cast a vision, start a vision. Sometimes I'm great at if it's brand new, there's nothing there, I'm good at that. Now, I get a little itch when it gets to be a little stale and not challenging, but some people are good at maintenance and systems and processes. I value that, but some people are way better at it than me. And so even if you're looking for new roles, look at the bulk of the duties and see if it aligns with your strengths. So you don't blend in as a leader, but you know exactly what you can do in that role and deliver efficiently and effectively without you not enjoying it or burning out. So questions that you should ask yourself, my challenge of the week: how do you harness your talents? How do you find out your strengths? Well, it's easy. You just have to look back at a time where you were proud of doing something that you love doing, that brought you joy, something you were happy that you succeeded, even though it was hard, and something where people were just astounded. Like, how did you do that? You're so great at X. So questions: what do you do best? Or what do I do best? Ask yourself, what do I do best? When did I show up as my best? And how did I do it? And then think about a time where you offered your unique contributions that no one else could match. When you are at the table and you're working on a team project, what are some things that immediately catch your eye and you can carry out, and you just have an eye for it and you have a passion for it? That's going to give you clues to your strengths. So as we are wrapping this episode up, I want you I want to leave you with this quote: a person's ability to achieve excellence and get the most out of their life is directly linked to understanding, developing, and aiming their strengths at outcomes that matter. That outcomes that matter is really important. So you got to figure out what matters and figure out how you aim it. And so not just at work, but if you operate in your strengths, imagine even if you're married and you talk about this in terms of your partnership with your partner, I'm great at this, you're great at that. Like those are conversations we should be having. Recognizing strengths in your kids, that's going to be the number one thing to make sure that they can grow up and be confident, and even give them a place in your house to where they can aim their strengths. This works all the way around, not necessarily just leadership, but in every area that you lead. Figuring out who you are, how you show up the best can be the best thing you can do for your productivity, your success, and your career. So, my call to action for you, if you want, especially those who are in this career, I need to figure out who I am. I'm transitioning careers, you're interviewing, you're trying to figure out what you want. I'm offering this to you. This helped me so much in my job search and just being clear with the kind of career. This really does help in your career development, whether it's moving up in a leadership position or you're transitioning in and out of roles or new jobs. I am a Gallup-Certified Career Coach, certified coach, but I also, so that means I'm eligible to provide the administration of the assessment, but also coach you around what that assessment means and how you can aim it toward the goals that you want. I talk to you about how you can use that in your interviews, your cover letters to show up better, be more clear about who you are, and also how to look at job descriptions to see if those strengths or variation, those strengths match what you have. So I'm going to post on the screen shortly how to schedule a discovery call so you can set up a coaching session with me. gracefullyproductive.com. Discovery call will talk about what you need, what you want, and how I could serve you as your coach, career coach, executive coach. I can be what kind of coach you ever you need. But I think this transformed me so much that I really do want other people to experience how it's helped me. And I also do this for teams. I've done it for a team of advisors, leadership on the leadership level. So I do team strengths assessment where everybody can see where they fit in the puzzle. And it is also transformative in a team setting. So either way, if you want a solo session or you want to bring this service to your team or your company, I am your girl. I would love to be your coach, your team facilitator around this topic. It's my passion. So please connect with me today. Thank you so much for tuning into Refueling Station Live. See you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.